Jeremy Harmon here from J Harmon Design. Today I'm going to show you this kitchen island that I built out of all reclaimed materials. I was doing a shop cleanup, which I do maybe once every month or every couple months, and I came across some really cool pieces. On the left here you'll see the framing that I'm going to use with the drawers. That came from an old bureau that I had salvaged. The base of that bureau I used for another project actually. The marble top on the right is from that same piece, the same bureau. And on the back there you'll see the oak runners. They were pallet runners. I got them at a local motorsports store. They're used for like shipping larger items. Those are great when cleaned up. They'll be the legs of this project. And then the pine boards that are there were just salvaged from a renovation I did. I'm going to rip those up and use them throughout the project too. So we start by removing all the nails from any of the boards. Usually a lot of these reclaimed or salvaged materials will be covered in nails, so it's always the first thing to do. So the body of this, I had to cut down to the right size. I could have used a circular saw for this, but I wanted to make it uniform, so I used the table saw. Probably not the safest way to do it, but it definitely got the job done. It did it pretty well. Since this piece that I'm using came from a bureau, the back side of it is typically up against the wall, so they don't really do a great job of finishing that. Being an island, a kitchen island, you're gonna see the back, so I needed to find a way to make it look good. I chose to go with like a shaker style panel on the back, and I carried that theme around the whole kitchen island. I cut some 1/8 inch plywood to size, and I'm fastening it to the framing to create that back panel. My girl Zoe decided to come out to the shop and say hi to me, so I had to stop and give her some love. Alright, so now I'm going to add the frame for the back panel. I'm using 3/4 inch pine that I ripped into 1 inch sections. I'm going to brad nail them in with wood glue for extra support. You'll notice later that the design changed a little bit. I actually had to take some of the framing off around the bottom. I changed that with a thicker skirt because I wanted more stability for the legs. I did do 2 separate panels in the back to match the front drawers, which you can see right here. I continued that framing around to both sides, brad nailing and gluing to the frame. Like I said, I did change up that design later on. So I cut all the legs to 30 inches on the miter saw, and I'm running them through the planer here to get them all to a uniform thickness, as well as clean up the edges and square them off. You see here the comparison of before and after planing, how clean the grain looks afterwards. Here I'm puttying all the nail holes and all the cracks to give the body a nice smooth finish. I use the stuff that's pink that turns white when it's ready. That way I know when it's time to sand. Just be careful on heavier coats that you give it enough time to dry. So I designed this piece with an open shelf underneath, and I'm using a top to an old coffee table that I had salvaged that I had lying around the shop as well. So I designed the shelf to wrap around the legs on the inside, and I did this because I wanted to give the legs a little bit more stiffness running down. Where they are 30-inch long legs, there's a couple ways to do this, but I felt like this would be the easiest since I'm already putting the shelf in there. Once I measured my slots for the legs, I just cut them out with the jigsaw. So I fabricated these braces that are going to hold the lower shelf and give it support. And here I'm just pre-drilling the holes. Once the putty is dried, I go over it with some fine grit sandpaper, smooth out all the edges. I did have to go back and refill some low spots afterwards. I took that same sandpaper to the lower shelf and just smoothed up the edges, get everything ready for paint. Painting took a lot longer than I expected. It took me about 4 or 5 coats to cover everything. I didn't do a primer, and I really should have. I probably should have used some Kills because the dark brown color of the original bureau kept bleeding through every coat, and it really took me 5 coats to finally get that covered. I was going to do the legs at gray wash, and I was going to show that technique in this video, but when I did the first coat, which was a dark walnut, I loved the color and how it contrasted with the white, so I decided to keep it. I attached the legs just by screwing them on both sides to that skirt on the body, and typically this wouldn't be a stable way to do this, but having that lower shelf is going to give the legs a little bit more rigidity and a little more stiffness, and it's going to work out fine. Now I'm attaching the supports that are going to hold up the lower shelf on each end, and I'm actually using the lower shelf, you can see on the bottom there, as a template so I have the legs set at the right distance apart from each other. Here I'm sliding that lower shelf into place, and I'm going to fasten it with screws to the supports from beneath. Now I'm going to remove the painter's tape and slide both drawers into place. Another issue that I always come across is the bolts that come with the hardware you would buy at Home Depot. They're designed for cabinets, and they rarely ever are the right size for an antique piece of furniture, an antique drawer. So I'm always forced to cut them or substitute them with another bolt from the hardware section. Once I had the drawer set and I stepped back to look at the final product, I wasn't really happy with the way the front face was flat and it didn't match the back and the side panels, being that shaker style, so I made a modification. I looked and I found these 4 stops are what keep the front face flush. They keep the drawers from sliding in too far, so I ended up chiseling them out, and it allowed the drawers to slide in past the front face and give them that shaker style look to match the sides and the back. Only thing left to do is slide both drawers in, put that heavy marble top on, and this project is complete. Again, this has been Jeremy Harmon of J Harmon Design. I want to thank you all for watching. If you like what you saw, you want to see more of my designs, please subscribe to my channel, or you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at J_Harmon Design. All my stuff's on there. Check it out.